Have you ever knocked on wood or maybe seen a black cat cross your path and felt that tiny little jolt of worry, even though you know it's, well, irrational? Let's get into the fascinating psychology behind why we just can't seem to shake these kinds of habits.
You see it up ahead on the sidewalk, right? And without even really thinking about it, you detour. You walk around it.
You say something out loud that you really don't want to jinx, and bam, your knuckles just automatically find the nearest table. It's almost a reflex.
And that's the real mystery, isn't it? We know it doesn't make logical sense, but some part of our brain still feels compelled to do it. So what's really going on in there? Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at our brain's deep, deep dislike for anything random. Then, we'll check out a classic and kind of weird experiment with pigeons. After that, we'll unpack that feeling of being in control, see how culture spreads these ideas, and finally, ask the big question: are superstitions actually good or bad for us? All right, let's start with the absolute foundation for all of this. Our brains are fundamentally allergic to randomness. They are designed from the ground up to find order, to find meaning, to connect the dots. And this is an ancient survival instinct. I mean, think about it. If you're an early human and you eat a certain berry and get sick, or you hear a rustle in the grass and a predator appears, your brain learns really fast to connect: if X happens, then Y might follow. The problem is that pattern-seeking machine is always on, and it often sees connections that aren't actually there.
And there's a name for this. Psychologists call it illusory correlation. It's that classic moment when you wear your lucky shirt and your team wins. Your brain doesn't just see a coincidence. It forges a link. It's not logic. It's a cognitive shortcut. And it forms the bedrock of pretty much every superstition out there.
This quote really just says it all. The anxiety of not knowing, of facing a chaotic world, it's so uncomfortable that our brain will literally invent a cause and effect story just to feel a little more settled. A wrong answer feels better than no answer.
Now, let's see how this actually plays out in the real world. A famous experiment from way back in 1948 shows us exactly how these accidental connections can create some really powerful, really lasting rituals. So, meet B.F. Skinner's superstitious pigeons. He put hungry pigeons in a box and hooked up a timer to deliver food at completely random intervals. The key here is that the food delivery had absolutely nothing to do with what the pigeons were doing. What happened next is a perfect example of something called operant conditioning. In simple terms, it just means our brains are wired to repeat any action that's followed by a reward, like that little hit of dopamine. The crucial part is that the reward doesn't have to be caused by the action. It just has to happen after it. So here's how it worked. A pigeon, just by pure chance, might have been turning its head to the left when the food pellet dropped. Its brain made an instant connection. Hey, I turned my head and I got food. So it starts turning its head more often. This increases the chance it'll be doing that same thing when the next random pellet arrives, which reinforces the ritual even more. Skinner saw pigeons developing all sorts of strange habits, like spinning in circles or pecking at a specific corner. As Skinner himself put it, the bird is acting as if it controls the food, even though it has no control at all. And this is exactly what we do. We perform a little ritual, something good happens by chance, and boom, a superstition is born. So we know how they form, but why do they feel so good? This brings us to the psychological payoff, that powerful feeling that we can influence the world around us. It gives us a sense of control, comfort, and even meaning.
And this feeling has a name: the illusion of control. It's our tendency to believe we can influence random events, especially when we're stressed or facing a lot of uncertainty. That's precisely when our minds are most desperate to feel like they're in charge.
A psychologist named Ellen Langer discovered that certain skill cues make this illusion even stronger. The main idea here is this: the more we feel like we're an active participant, the more our brain gets tricked into treating a game of pure chance like it's a game of skill. Langer's lottery studies are a perfect example. People who got to pick their own numbers placed a much higher value on their ticket. They were completely unwilling to trade it, even for a ticket that had better odds. That simple act of choosing created this feeling that they had some special influence over a totally random outcome. Now, a superstition might start with just one person and their lucky shirt, but it rarely stops there. These beliefs get supercharged when they become part of our shared culture. I mean, think about these. You didn't invent them.
You learned them. Breaking a Mirror, Friday the 13th. These are stories our culture tells us. They're passed down to create a shared sense of safety. And they persist everywhere. Even in modern financial markets, there are trading superstitions because, well, humans never stopped being human. Okay, so we've got these deep-seated, culturally reinforced beliefs. But what's the bottom line here? Are they just a harmless quirk, or are they a dangerous crutch?
The truth is, it's a bit of both. On the helpful side, a small ritual can genuinely reduce anxiety and boost confidence. It can give you a mental edge. You see athletes use them all the time to get in the zone. But on the harmful side, they can start to replace logic. If you rely on a lucky charm instead of studying, or a ritual instead of seeking real medical advice, well, it stops being helpful and starts getting in the way of real problem solving.
So here's the crucial point. Superstitions are basically just psychological tools. A little good luck charm might be a comforting placebo. But when that tool becomes a rule that dictates your life and prevents you from making rational choices, that's when it becomes a liability.
When you really pull it all together, superstitions aren't just silly habits. They're ancient, powerful stories that our pattern-seeking brains tell themselves to create a map for a world that often feels random and completely unpredictable. They reveal our deep psychological need for meaning and control in the face of uncertainty. They show that at our core, we're not just logical machines, we are emotional creatures. Which leaves us with one final thought. If it provides a little comfort and does no real harm, maybe a little bit of magic isn't such a bad thing after all.